Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to get started in just a minute or two. Give everyone a chance to get settled into the room. Those of you just joining us, we're going to get started in just a couple of minutes as soon as we give everyone a chance to get settled into the room. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and jump in and get started. First of all, a big welcome to all of you. My name is Joe Fantozzi, and I'm the Director of Recruitment and First-Year Scholarships here at Hunter. I'm going to serve as your moderator today. We want to welcome you to our Financing Your Education Hawk Talk for admitted students, certainly a really important topic. If this is the first time you're joining us for an admitted student event, we want to give you a huge welcome and congratulations. This is a really competitive year for Hunter admissions, so you should certainly be proud of the fact that you were admitted. Today's session obviously is focusing on financing your education. This is a strong point for Hunter and Cuny in general. We're obviously a very affordable institution, and we have colleagues here today that are going to go through all the different ways that you could fund your education and also do your best to graduate as close to debt-free as possible. We're very proud that about 3/4 of our students each year graduate debt-free, and almost 80% of our students receive some sort of financial support. So obviously, Hunter is a very strong financial option for your college education. Of course, we're sad we can't meet you in person just yet, but these next 45 minutes will hopefully be a great opportunity for you to learn a little bit about financial aid and all the financing options we have here at Hunter. Before we jump in, I just want to remind you that we're in webinar mode. So while we can't see you on camera, you can interact with us by using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the session. We'll answer them live in the chat, and sometimes we'll also flag questions so that we can answer them live on screen at the end. You don't have to come on screen, but we'll answer them live on screen at the end if we feel like it will be good for everyone to hear the question. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Nigel Thompson, who is the Director of Financial Aid here at Hunter. Nigel, why don't you take it from here?
Thank you, Joe. I'm going to share my screen right now. Oh, boy. Thank you, everyone. Just bear with me 1 second while I share my screen. Apologies.
We could see it, Nigel, so you should be ready.
Perfect. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure. So as we talk about college affordability, sorry, just a little bit of technical difficulty here. Trying to switch to the next screen. Can you still see it?
Yep, we can see it. Go for it.
So as we talk about college affordability, we always tout our exceptional and affordable value at Hunter College. I'm going to switch to the next slide. Essentially, when we compare college costs, as you can see, Cuny has a much more affordable college cost than most colleges, including SUNY. Our total cost of attendance is roughly $17,326 per year. This includes not only tuition and fees, but other educational expenses, both direct and indirect costs. For those students who are in-state, as you can see, SUNY is slightly higher, as well as some private colleges. For those students who are living away from home and New York State resident, Their cost of education is slightly higher because of additional housing or indirect expenses. The total cost was $28,850 in comparison to some of our colleagues were SUNY as well as private. One thing we talk about when we are talking about affordability is roughly 75% of our undergrad students at Hunter College graduate debt-free. One of the key ways that many of our students graduate debt-free is through the federal student aid programs. Students can receive a number of federal aid programs through FAFSA.gov or studentaid.gov. The Hunter school code is 002689. And some of the programs that students may qualify for through the FAFSA application is, for one example, a Pell Grant. So for the 21-22 academic year, students can get as much as $6,495 per year as a full-time student. Students may also qualify for something called an SEOG grant or Supplemental Educational Opportunities Grant, and they may receive up to $1,000 per year at CUNY. In addition to the two grants I listed above, some students may also be able to qualify for federal work study. In order for students to be considered for federal work study, they should and must indicate that they're interested in federal work study on the FAFSA application. Eligible students may qualify for up to $2,000 to help assist in working while you're in school, at least part-time. In addition to grant programs, students may also qualify for certain student loans. There are several types of student loans students may qualify for. Just very briefly, the first loan that a student may qualify for is the direct subsidized loan. This loan is need-based, and it's need-based based on the information you provide on the FAFSA. Students who are eligible for a subsidized loan are not required to pay interest while they're in school. Interest only accrues when the student graduates or stops attending. Those students who do not qualify for subsidized loans may also be considered for an unsubsidized loan, which is a non-need-based loan, and it's based on obviously filling out the FAFSA. Interest does accrue while the student is in school. However, you can choose to pay the interest, but if you choose not to, it gets capitalized onto your principal balance. For those students who the FAFSA has determined that are dependent, they may also qualify for a Parent Plus loan. This is actually a loan that is similar to the unsub loan where interest accrues while you're in school, but students may ask their parents to borrow on their behalf, and it is used to cover their educational expenses. In addition to federal grant and loan programs, we also do allow our students to participate in state aid programs. One such program is the TAP program. In order for students to be considered for the TAP program, they must fill out a TAP application at www.hesc.ny.gov. Students can fill out both FAFSA and TAP applications as early as October 1st. For the 21-22 year, it actually was as early as October 1st of 2020. A student who is eligible for TAP may receive up to $5,165 per year for full-time studies. Students who do not decide to go full-time may also qualify for something called Aid for Part-Time Studies. That's actually a separate application that students will fill out once they have access to their CUNY First account. In addition to the TAP application and apps, students may also want to be considered for Excelsior Scholarship, which is a separate application through hes.ny.gov. The Excelsior application for fall will most likely be available in August of 2021. And if eligible, students may qualify for up to 100% of their tuition for up to 4 years. In addition to that, students may also be considered for a New York State Scholarship for Academic Excellence, a New York State Achievement and Investment in Merit, as well as a New York State STEM, which all have separate applications. Key reminder for students filling out the TAP application, the Hunter TAP code is 1413. In addition to federal and New York State grant and loan programs, students may also want to be considered for scholarships. In order to be considered for scholarships, students must complete a FAFSA application every academic year, And they also have to complete the institutional scholarship with the link provided below. It's huntercollege.scholarships.ngwebsolutions.com. For students who want to be considered for other CUNY scholarships, there's actually an application as well where they can apply at cuny.edu/fin-aid/scholarships. In addition to CUNY and Hunter College scholarships, students may also be considered for other outside scholarships, and there are several websites students can review below and apply as needed. Once students have completed the FAFSA application, as well as the TAP and any additional applications, if awarded, a student will be able to see a sample financial aid package as you see before yourself. To give an example, the following student is awarded a Pell Grant for fall, a Pell Grant for spring, as well as an SCOG grant for fall and an SCOG grant for spring, and an estimated TAP award for both terms as well. Students are also emailed their sample financial aid packages once they've been awarded and their financial aid has been finalized. Here's actually another sample based on a student's financial aid package, but it's also broken up by term. And students, once they do have access to their CUNY First account, they can view their awards by term and by loan and amount or grants and amounts, as you can see on the screen below. There are several key successful tips for financing your education at Hunter College. One key tip is do not delay. If you have not filled out your FAFSA for 21-22, please do so as soon as possible, as well as if you are eligible to apply for TAP, please do so as soon as possible. If you have indicated that you're a New York State resident on your FAFSA application, on the confirmation page at the end, students can link to their TAP application as well. Please plan ahead and set your educational goals, whether you're applying for FAFSA or state aid or considering to take out. And if you have any additional questions, please always contact your financial aid advisor, and we can provide you with a whole host of other information that we can assist for you in financing your education. If you have any additional questions about this presentation or anything that may come up in the future, you can reach us at finaid@hunter.cuny.edu. Once we are back on site, we're located in the North Building on Park Avenue, 695 Park Avenue, room 241. I want to thank you all for listening to my presentation, and we'll be leaving this open for questions. Back to you, Joe.
Thanks, Nigel, for getting us started with this presentation with a nice overview that will frame the conversation nicely. We have a lot of great questions coming in from our students and a couple of others I'd love to address here. First and foremost, I think a common question that students often have is, what is the difference between need-based aid and also merit-based aid? Can you get both? And also, how do you apply for them? Maybe if we could start with need-based aid. What are the different types of need-based aid, and what does that even mean? Is it, is it income restricted, or how does that work?
Thank you for that question, Joe. So need-based aid is actually based on the information you provide on your FAFSA. So as students fill out the FAFSA application, based on the income provided, we can determine what your need is. So technically, students who are considered to be the neediest will get awards such as Pell. If they filled out the TAP application, get awards such as TAP. And if I remember, I mentioned also before, certain loans are also considered need-based, such as the subsidized loan. So many of these awards that students are being considered for are based on need, and that's based on the income provided on the FAFSA. Federal income, both taxable and non-taxable. Usually students who tend to have lower income will have higher need, and students have higher income will have less of a need. But it's essentially based on the information provided on the FAFSA.
Great. And Nigel, what's the maximum amount of need-based aid that you can receive, assuming a student lives in New York State, which most of our students in this session today do? What's the maximum that you can get?
So assuming a student gets full Pell, full TAP, a student can get as much as maybe $12,000 for an academic year. That does not necessarily include other need-based aids such as work study and SEOG. I've even seen as high as 15,000, depending on how much aid is available and how early they are.
Great. So that's significantly more than our tuition, 7,000. So that's, I would say, a pretty good deal, right?
Definitely.
One of our a population with a lower income. This is a massive resource for you, is a way to pay your education in full, with having some leftover money to do other educational expenses, correct?
That's correct.
Great, excellent. So a couple other questions, a pretty straightforward one, but an important one. Is there any assistance, financial assistance for students who decide to enroll part-time? How does that work?
Yeah, so part-time is actually, students can receive financial aid for part-time enrollment. In the presentation, just to be mindful, it's actually based on enrollment. So a student can get as Pell for as little as 0.5 credits and get as Pell for as much as 12 credits. It's based on your enrollment. So if a student is attending at least 6 credits or less, they can get a Pell Award if eligible based on the income provided on the FAFSA. Although students may not qualify for TAP, they may qualify for a state aid program called Aid for Part-Time Studies. That's actually based on a form that must be completed once you are committed to the college. It's called a Cuny Supplement form. And if eligible, I've heard as much as they're getting as much as $100 per credit, depending on our, I guess, the availability of funding. So students get, as well as loans. If a student is taking at least 6 credits, they can also qualify for need-based and non-need-based loans as well.
Great, excellent. This is a good one and a very common one. What if you make a mistake on the FAFSA?
So chances are, if you do make a mistake on FAFSA, you may get selected for a process called verification. That's actually something called like a checks and balances. It allows us to then make a determination of what information may need to be brought in. So the federal government will actually let you know if you're selected. 2 ways. If you're not selected for verification, you can still notify us and we'll provide you with instructions on how we can correct it. Sometimes we may ask you to correct it, and sometimes we may correct it depending on the type of mistake made. If you're selected for verification and there is a mistake on the FAFSA, we will request additional information, which can include something called a verification form worksheet, as well as both taxable and non-taxable information if required, and we will correct the error as needed to ensure that you get the most accurate financial aid package possible. Great,
excellent. It's common for students to think about pursuing a double major or a double major and a minor. How does this impact financial aid? Can you get more aid, less aid, the same? How does it work, Nigel?
So roughly, if you're considering a double major, a minor, for aid purposes, the aid will stay relatively the same. We look at the primary program of study or major, and we base your eligibility on that. So if you are a major in a particular program, a science program, and you have a minor, we're primarily focusing your eligibility based on that major, whether it be for Pell and or for state aid TAP in this particular scenario.
Great, excellent. And as we sort of outlined a little bit earlier, Nigel, it is possible for there to be a balance. So let's say you get, $1,000 in federal Pell Grants, and you get $5,000 in New York State TAP aid. That is roughly, let's say, $11,000. After you pay tuition, you have roughly $4,000 left over. A lot of our students are in that circumstance. So what happens to that $4,000? Is it given right to the student? And what can they do with that money?
Yeah, so essentially, if your aid is in excess of your educational tuition costs, you will be refunded the excess, in some cases by check or direct deposit, whichever option you elect. We always encourage students to use direct deposit due to delays in mailing and things like that. The excess resources can be used to cover other indirect educational expenses, such as books and supplies, transportation, food, housing. It's really up to you to decide how to use the funding. We just encourage you to be mindful and choose wisely how to spend it and budget ahead, because circumstances may change from year to year.
Great, excellent. And this is an important one. Obviously, Nigel, a really difficult year financially and otherwise for many, many people. So circumstances have changed financially for a lot of folks. When you're filing FAFSA, it always obviously goes on what is known as prior year, or in a different way of saying that, kind of 2 years ago, basically. So obviously the finances are a little bit different now. So what do students do if their financial circumstances have changed and their 2020 tax returns, for instance, are a lot lower or just a lot different than 2018 or 2019 would be? What is how should a student go about addressing that?
That's an excellent question. Thank you, Joe. So essentially, mentioned about prior. Usually when students are filling out the FAFSA for aid year 21, 22, they're asked to provide taxable income from 2018, which is in some cases not necessarily a reflection of your current economic circumstances. So in the event a student, for whatever reason, may be dealing with some economic challenges, such as a loss of employment, a family death that may have been contributory to the household income, we would actually ask those students to, we can do something called professional judgment, asking and looking at your current economic circumstances for a full year, or in some cases an academic year, depending on how we view your circumstances, with appropriate documentation, and make adjustments to your FAFSA information to reflect your current economic circumstances. But it's all done on a case-by-case basis. Every scenario is absolutely different, so we look at them on a case-by-case, and we make an adjustment to the income provided based on your specific circumstances, which may impact you getting additional financial aid, primarily federal.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Nigel. We're going to jump over to scholarships for a couple of questions. Let's see here. So the main question is kind of a general one. What types of scholarships, meaning merit scholarships, does Hunter provide for students, and how does that work, and how do you apply?
So I'm actually going to answer the first part of that question related to some students, primarily those who have graduated from high school with a certain average, may qualify for something, a merit scholarship called a loan, which can offer up to $700 per year, which is roughly $350 per term if eligible. That's usually automatic once you're accepted. I'm going to jump to my colleague, Ms. Jones, who's actually going to explain the more detailed scholarships related to at Hunter. Thank you.
There's a lot of scholarships at Hunter College. Nigel, can you share the screen again and put up the site where they can apply, please? And for example, if you're a freshman student, there's also scholars. There's there's the Yanovics, there's a lot that's out there that you can apply for. If you have not received it at this point, most likely the candidates have already been selected. So for those who have already received scholarship notifications, if they have not, but we've already selected the candidates for the freshman parts. But for the transfer students, normally you need to complete at least 24 credits at Hunter with at least a minimum of a 3.0 GPA. And once you do that, we have a lot of scholarships through the academic departments, as well as if you apply through NextGen. We offer, like I would say, about $5 million worth of scholarships every year. So there is a lot of scholarships. There's over 400 of them that we have at Hunter. So you want to make sure that you apply on NextGen. Because when we get new funding from donors, we go to NextGen first to see who have applied. And basically, we will start looking for candidates that way. So you definitely want to make sure you put your application in so that you are eligible at the time. But you do, if you're a transfer student, it has to be 24 credits because you need to have a GPA. So you need to have the 3.0 GPA. And if you're a freshman, if you have not applied for the freshman scholars, I would suggest that you do so. And if you have, hopefully you'll be hearing from the committee soon in terms of whether you've been admitted to, if you've been selected as a candidate.
Great, thank you. And I'll just add just a couple of quick notes on that. Something that's important for our newly admitted students to know is that really there's kind of two main avenues for scholarships at Hunter. One, and this is my colleague Joanne was just alluding to this, is if you applied for one of our honors programs, so for some of our incoming freshmen, which are most of you in this room, and you applied for one of our honors, freshman honors programs or the Macaulay Honors College, that is one method, of course. And then for our transfer students, as Joanne mentioned, there's also scholarships for incoming students that you could apply for. But that's not the end of the story. If you don't get one of those or you miss the opportunity to apply, there's a lot of scholarships at Hunter for continuing students. So if you coming in as your freshman year, going from your freshman, sophomore, junior year, you're coming in as a transfer student, you complete a year, there are opportunities through that website that you're seeing on your screen there that you'd be able to apply. Now, keep in mind also that website that you're seeing there, since you're not currently enrolled at Hunter, you're not going to apply just yet. You would only be able to apply as a prospective student for now for some of those honors programs, but some of the other scholarships will be available to you as soon as you become a Hunter student. And like Joanne and Nigel said, as soon as you become a student, we encourage you to complete that application so that you can be matched with any potential funding opportunities. Okay, next question I'd like to jump to about regarding Excelsior. A hot topic, of course. Excelsior, for those of you that don't know much about it, it was mentioned a little bit earlier, is a form of New York State need-based aid, but it works a little different than the rest of our aid. So Nigel or Joanne, can you talk a little bit about Excelsior? How much does it cover? How do you qualify?
So Excelsior is a New York State aid scholarship program. Essentially, for students, it's considered a last dollar earned scholarship program. So students actually it's recommended for students to complete a FAFSA application, as well as a TAP application, and then also an Excelsior application. The application for Excelsior for fall 2021 will be available in August of 2021. We'll be notifying all of our students about its availability. And for those students that are eligible for Excelsior, you can qualify for up to 100% of your tuition free for years. And it's actually, if you are qualified for some other aids, such as Pell or TAP or a combination of the two, Excelsior will cover the difference up to 100% of the tuition. One key note I want to let students know is that for families with household income of 125,000 or less will qualify if eligible. However, one key thing I also want to mention is that you must be taking at least 12 credits towards your program of study, as well as ensuring that you complete 30 credits each year so that you can be completed within 4-year time frame.
Great, excellent. This is a pretty general question. I'm sure everyone in the room is curious about this. When can you expect to see a financial aid breakdown for Hunter if you've recently been admitted? Where do you go to see it? And how should students approach that?
So students who have been admitted and commitment deposited should be receiving a financial aid award notice as we speak. Those have been going out as early as this week. They're going on an ongoing basis. So as you're filling out your FAFSA, you're going to have some estimated award notifications going to you if eligible, and they're going out on a rolling basis. So if you have been admitted and have committed, you will receive those as soon as possible. It comes in an email format to your Hunter College email address, and it will give you a detailed breakdown similar to one I showed you in our presentation regarding your specific awards and amounts.
Great, excellent. And Nigel, if they have any questions about where to find this information, how to interpret it, your office is available by email or Zoom, is that correct?
That's correct. We are actually we have a wonderful new FA website. Students can go to hunter.cuny.edu. You can look at financial aid's website. I like it, it looks amazing. And it can provide you also additional information on our website. You can also email us at finaid@hunter.cuny.edu, as well as you can sign up once you are a student, and you should have received a link, but actually we have an active link on our website now that allows you to sign up to see a virtual advisor. It's actually listed there, virtual front desk. And basically you can talk to a financial aid advisor about your particular scenario.
Great, excellent. I would encourage all of you in the room to take advantage of that for sure, and get specific questions, because while these sessions are fantastic, it is general information, and financial is, of course, always a personal thing. So those are really good sessions for to get your questions answered. I want to jump over to the topic of work study for a moment. Work study is an important piece of funding and education, not only for the money, but also for the potential experience on campus. I know we have work study students in our office, as do you, in financial aid. So can you talk a little bit about work study? And if a student's not sure if they applied for work study, how did they go about getting it, or seeing that they might get assigned to that?
Yeah, so in order for students to be considered for work study, they must indicate on the FAFSA that they're interested in participating in work study or applying for work study. Depending on how early you file, if eligible, you may be packaged automatically. It'll be offered to you. You will be sent a notification asking you to consider accepting the award. Once you've accepted the award, you'll be notified sometime before the beginning, if selected to come to Hunter, at the beginning of the fall term, regarding placement opportunities, as well as what's available for students to, work in. The awards can range up to $2,000 per term, and students can work, as long as they're 6 credits or more, they can work part-time at $15 per hour and up to the maximum award amount for the year. We also have something called a work study experimental site program, where for students, once they have committed to the college and begin enrolling, at some point, depending on what program you're in, if your program requires some form of clinical work or internship, you may be considered for that program, where you can get up to $17 per hour. And while you're kind of earning the credit, you can also receive funding or payment for work study while you're doing that internship or that clinical placement, depending on your major or program of study. This program is expected to last for about 3 years. So I'm mentioning it now for those students who are considering us. So depending on if you're going into education or nursing or any of those fields with clinical clinical programs, you may qualify for that program.
Great, excellent. And just a quick note, I know this was addressed a little bit, but work study jobs are available in the remote environment, correct?
That's correct. Currently, based on the pandemic, we're actually requiring all of our potential employers to set, unless obviously in clinical fields, which in some cases may require some on-site work, for the employment to be remote, 100% remote.
Great, excellent. A couple of questions about some specific populations that are important. Is there any financial aid opportunity for international students? If you're an international student, what should you do?
Thank you, Joe. So for those students who are considered international, undocumented, or DACA, we do offer financial aid programs for those students. It's actually through New York State Aid. It's for hes.ny.gov. There's an application called the Jose Peralta. Essentially, students will qualify for similar programs like TAP, APS, Excelsior Scholarship by filling out this application. It's a separate application, separate from TAP and separate from Excelsior. It's called a Jose Peralta Scholarship or Jose Peralta program, where undocumented or international or DACA students may qualify for it if they apply. So those students will be eligible for state aid, but they must be, oh, sorry, go ahead, Joanne, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, no, you can finish, because I was going to talk about scholarships.
Yeah, those students can apply for those awards, and if eligible, they can receive it similar to like any other eligible documented student.
And in regards to scholarships, there are scholarships for international and DACA students. Same applies if you're a freshman, based upon what Joe said for the honors program, as well as for continuing students. With the same thing, where you have to complete the 24 credits with a minimum of 3.0 GPA. You can apply, okay? For DACA students or undocumented students, you would not fill out the FAFSA, but for international and regular students, you can fill out the FAFSA because we look at that to see if you're eligible for need-based aid or need-based scholarships. So you wanna make sure that you fill out the FAFSA, but just the undocumented and DACA, no, you don't do that, but for the international, And regular students, yes, you will fill out the FAFSA.
Great, excellent. Just a quick question about international students coming over on an F1 visa. So coming from another country on an F1 visa, they are mostly limited to merit scholarships. Is that correct?
That is correct. But if they fill out the FAFSA, I can also see the need if they have a need. But normally, what happens with international students is that you have a sponsor, and with that sponsor, it states that you can afford it. But sometimes that changes, where your sponsor no longer can provide that information. So if you fill out the FAFSA and you show that you have that need, you could also get need-based, but I would say 95% of our scholarships, well, let's make more like 98% of them are really for merit-based students. Yeah, it's merit-based, yes.
Great, excellent. Thank you both. So just a couple of things to wrap us up here. This is kind of a general question, but is a common one. At Hunter, how much financial aid can you get? Is there a maximum? How much can you possibly get? And how much do students typically get?
So typically students can get as much as up to cost of attendance depending on their eligibility. So depending on if a student is living with or away from their parents, they can get up to, I've seen as much as a student getting up to 17,000 as high as 28,000. Obviously, this is with a combination of grant-based aid, need-based aid, as well as loans. But they can, in some cases, get as much as their cost of attendance depending on their eligibility. So it's a combination of programs such as Pell, TAP, SEOG, work study, etc.
Great, excellent, fantastic. All right, so with that, I think we got to almost all the questions in the chat. From our students' perspective, we really appreciate all of our students and your insightful questions. We know this is a really important topic, and to Joanne and Nigel and all of our colleagues in the background answering the questions in the chat, a big thank you to all of you for giving us some really important information today. Obviously, Hunter and Cuny as a whole is an extremely affordable option, whether you're a New York State resident or even as an out-of-state or international student. A lot of financing options, and we are a public institution, so we're incredibly affordable. And like I mentioned at the very beginning of today's session, we work very hard to keep our students in a good financial situation. So meaning that when our most recent graduating class, 3/4 of them graduated without any debt. And like I said earlier, 80% of our students are receiving some sort of aid to help them pay for their education here at Hunter. So it's something we pride ourselves in, and will certainly set all of our students up for success, whether that means going on to an advanced degree or whether that means taking a job somewhere and not having to worry about that financial burden. So we hope to see you as part of the Hunter community in the fall. We again encourage you to continue exploring Hunter. We're going to post in the chat in just a moment here a link back to our admitted student page. Please continue to use that as a home base that has all of our different sessions and all different topics. Typically, this day would be on campus and we'd have everyone here at once. Obviously, in a virtual environment, it's a little different. So we spread it out for you over the month of March and April. There's so many different topics for you to explore, whether it's an academic topic, whether it's learning about our advising resources, obviously our financial resources like today, or talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, anti-racism initiatives that are happening on campus. So there's a lot of different sessions, and we purposely kept them short, like 45 minutes or so that you could pop in, learn a little bit about who we are, and really get a sense of what it's like to be a Hunter Hawk. So we encourage you to continue taking advantage of all of that. And if you're ready and you say Hunter's the place for me, you can, starting at any point in time, log into your Cuny First account and submit your commitment to Hunter and also your deposit by May 1st, anytime between now and May 1st. And that will reserve your spot in the fall 2021 class. So with that, we look forward to seeing you again soon. Hopefully it's in person at some point in time. But for now, we'll see you on various Zoom sessions, and we wish you a really successful remainder of your school year and your semester. And we hope to see you on campus in the fall. Have a great day, everyone.